I'm Amanda. I'm the Events and Marketing Director for Bookworks, your longtime independent bookstore. We are down in the North Valley of Albuquerque near the Rio Grande River, and we are back open for browsing. We were closed for 14 months during the pandemic, and so grateful to be getting by with your online orders. I'll mention our website. It is our name without the O's. It's bkwrks.com. You can buy tonight's book, Radiant Rest by Tracee Stanley, there at bookworks.com. We also have a full page of new yoga books that I put together recently. So please check that out. And remember to support your local bookstore. Most of us have made it through the pandemic with your gracious patronage, and we are pleased to be reopened for browsing at Bookworks. Our hours now are 9 to 4, Tuesday through Saturday, and be sure to bring your mask. You can also bring your furry friends. We are open back up for our dog friends too. Okay, tonight we are very pleased to be exploring a topic that I am super interested in, Yoga Nidra. Giving ourselves the permission to do a little bit more resting. I don't know about you all, but this pandemic has made my life really even more chaotic than it was before. Trying to work from home virtually, trying to manage my son who's in virtual school, trying to manage a toddler, doing all this from home. And it is harder and harder to find those places where we can be quiet and rest. We were just talking about this before you all logged on. As you can see, Karen is in the car. We'll talk a little bit more about how you can find rest in a multitude of places. All right, so before we get started, I want to tell you a little bit about the speakers for tonight. We're here, of course, celebrating Tracee Stanley's beautiful new book, Radiant Rest. It's from one of my favorite publishers, Shambhala. You may know Tracee as a Hollywood producer. She produced nearly 40 movies and was looking for a way to get out of her hectic lifestyle when she discovered Yoga Nidra over 20 years ago. She is now the co-founder of Empowered Wisdom Yoga Nidra School, and she's the creator of an oracle deck called the Empowered Life Self-Inquiry Oracle Deck. Sorry. She does a lot of public speaking. She has an online class presence. You can take classes with her at Commune, through Yoga Journal, and through Wanderlust TV. Tracee is broadcasting from beautiful northern New Mexico. Tracee, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me. That was an amazing introduction. Thank you.
Yay. And then we have Karen Brody with us. Shambhala recruited Karen to talk to Tracee tonight about her book, given that they're both Yoga Nidra experts. Karen Brody is a resident of the Santa Fe area, but she is hanging out in Albuquerque and in her car right now, broadcasting from that area. She is a well-being and leadership expert. She is the co-founder of Daring to Rest, a Yoga Nidra-based empowerment program for women. I think we're going to talk a lot tonight about how Yoga Nidra might empower us as women. She also has a master's degree from Vassar and is a playwright and author herself. Her book is called Daring to Rest. You can find both of these books on our website. I will put the link in the chat. If you have any questions that come up for you during the event, you can also type those into the chat and we will address them at the end. All right, I'm going to unpin myself and turn it over to these two, Tracee Stanley and Karen Brody. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. I'm ready to learn something about Yoga Nidra.
Thanks, Amanda.
Thank you so much, Amanda. And thank you, Karen, for agreeing to do this conversation.
I'm so thrilled because your book is so needed. And I'm so glad that we were talking just before we got on live here, that it's selling so well. And it's not surprising it's selling so well, because in this moment, something you said before we got on, which is we need permission to rest. We need to be shown how to rest. And I'd love to know, just to start us off, because Yoga Nidra, we're going to go there, but just this umbrella of deep rest. The first description of rest that I read was David White, when he said, rest is the conversation between what you love to do and how you love to be. And
Mm.
I'm just wondering, what's your definition of rest?
Mm. My definition of rest is my relationship with my capacity to be held and
That is so
cultivating that
beautiful.
relationship.
Oh my gosh. Okay, the capacity to be held. Well, this is interesting as I read your book because it says it's a Yoga Nidra book, and it is a Yoga Nidra book. Very much so. Everyone's going to learn a lot about Yoga Nidra, and we'll talk about that in a second. But I would love for you to say why you organized it the way you did, because there's a lot of connection with nature. There's practices in here that are so practical. They're so easy to do. They're not all Yoga Nidra practices. So if you can just tell us about your book, why you dreamt this book into being, and how you organize the book, because I think it's really clever.
Mm, that is a great question. So, I was asked by Shambhala if I was interested in writing a book on Yoga Nidra. And my first reaction was no, there's this book about Yoga Nidra and this book and this book, and this person's writing a book, and they're all amazing. And I started to get some signs that maybe I should pause and consider that I'm getting signs saying maybe you should write a book. And so I really thought about what my relationship, again, that word relationship, was to the practice and how I cultivated the relationship. Because the relationship was not cultivated just by doing the technique, it was deepened by understanding about the goddess Yoga Nidra, about understanding how the rishis and the original seers of yoga actually were practicing in the forest, and the gurus like Dattatreya, who considered nature to be his guru. So people would say, "Who is your guru?" And he'd say, "I have 24 gurus, and you can find all of my 24 gurus in nature. And it's the bird, it's the tree, it's the cloud, it's the eagle." And so I just started to kind of sit down and think about, what is my relationship? How did I cultivate this relationship? What were the practices and the things that I did that actually allowed me to deepen my understanding in an embodied way of this practice? And then I kind of thought about, well, who is going to read this book? Clearly, the people who are interested in Yoga Nidra because they've been practicing or they're curious about it, or teachers. But I also wanted to reach the people that felt like they really wanted to dedicate or devote themselves to a practice, but didn't know how, and almost didn't feel like it was them for them. Because a lot of times we think about a dedicated or devoted yoga practice, and it's like, oh, a yoga teacher is going to spend hours and hours practicing meditation. They live on a mountain somewhere. And that could not be further from the truth in the West, at least, right? And so I wanted to give some of the tools that I used when I had a career in corporate and I was working 12 to 18-hour days. How did I weave these practices into my life? And so that was kind of my template of uh, how I organized the book, because I wanted everybody to have a portal in, no matter where they were coming from. If they never practiced Yoga Nidra, if they knew they were exhausted and they just needed rest, or if they'd been studying Yoga Nidra for 15 years, that there was some portal that was going to lead them into a deeper relationship with the practice and with their capacity to be held and to rest and to know that they're worthy of it.
And you've done that. That there are a lot of portals in. That's what I love. And when I saw the section on householders flow, I just like put my hands up in the air. It's a little hard in my car, but what I will say is, being in my car, this is kind of connects to this all, which is in Daring to Rest, we say chuck perfect.
Mm,
Just chuck perfect and rest. Especially to women, talk a lot to women because we are held back by perfection. We're exhausted from perfection. And there are opportunities. And here I am in my car today, which reminded me of this was my first rest space, what I call a rest cave, because my son would go to soccer And I realized, oh, I don't have time. I don't have time. Oh, wait a minute. I was sitting in the parking lot,
Right.
well, so I just leaned the seat back and I rested there. And so you have this householders flow section, which I think kind of grounds the whole book in this practical real life piece that we can be held at
Mhm,
any time.
mhm.
And the householders flow can be 3 minutes of
That's right.
practice.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a real, the householders flow for me is a real reclaiming of our, first of all, acknowledging that we have the desire to rest, right? Because so many times I can imagine being in the car at soccer practice, and some people may be feeling like, oh, I don't want anyone to see me sleeping. Like, I don't, and it's like, why is that? So this idea of rest and reclaiming rest is definitely counterculture. And so we have to figure out a way to weave it in. And, I love that you're in your car. We talked about this just before. In the book, I mentioned my friend Bill, who I've known for 20 years, and he has many places in his house that he could go and meditate, but he meditates in his car. And that's his meditation cave. And during the pandemic, I had many students who were like, I'm home, I'm trapped with my kids and my husband in a space. I don't have any space where I have privacy. And I would tell them, go in the car. And so that's just one example of how you can start to reclaim space, whether it's 3 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. The householder flow is really acknowledging that we're not living in a cave. We are not in a cave meditating where people are bringing us chai and food 3 times a day. We're living, we run businesses, we have families. And if we have distraction, because we all waste time in some way, right? We all have something, whether it's the scrolling or the checking of the emails. What is it that we can start to give up a little bit that's not moving our life forward? And how can we replace rest just in that space, even if it's only 5 minutes?
Yes. Yes. That was the conversation I had with myself in the car, which was my son was doing soccer and I was on my phone.
Mm,
And I went, okay, wait a minute. I do have time right now.
hmm.
And actually, the car, PS for everyone who hasn't practiced in a car, it's a really sweet space. It feels very protective, like womb-like. So for those who don't know what Yoga Nidra is, can you define Yoga Nidra in your words, what it is? Because it's a little deceiving. Yoga Nidra, people think you're doing asana, bendy, stretchy, the whole thing.
It's so true. It's so true. So Yoga Nidra is, I think, the most accessible type of yoga. And it's deceiving because we've equated yoga with the physical posture. And the physical posture that is used in Yoga Nidra practice is the posture of lying down in a supine position and being completely supported, completely comfortable, literally in the most luxury that you can possibly be for yourself, that you set every part of your body up to be supported. And so, Nidra, that word has been translated into sleep. So we know it as the yoga of sleep. And it also means the ni refers to void, and the dru refers to that which is revealed or to draw forth from. So, this idea is that you're being guided into a journey towards a void, towards this place of non doing, towards this place of letting go of thinking. And when you get to that place, it's almost like everything dissolves. That awareness of the body dissolves, awareness of all the worries and all the concerns of the worldly material life also dissolve, and that you become aware of your essence. And that essence is an essence that is full of light and full of power and full of love. And you get to rest in that while you are unconditionally held by the earth. And so that, to me, Yoga Nidra is a journey back to ourselves, back to our our true essence. And we get to do that every time we practice. And when we wake up from the practice, we are changed.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. That's why I fell in love with it so deeply, because I had meditated for a long time before discovering Yoga Nidra. And so um, when I discovered Yoga Nidra, it was like meditation with a cherry on top. Wow. Really? Like, I didn't, everyone on the planet has to know about this meditation. But your book has Yoga Nidra, but I think there's something, there's, for people who don't know, it's typically, I would say for beginners, they're guided with, it's a guided sleep-based meditation, but you talk about self-guiding as well. And I
Mhm,
love that because
mhm.
there's the empowerment. Hello.
Yes,
Tell us a
yes.
little about, um, yeah, about why you put in this self-guided piece.
It goes back to my relationship with the practice, is that when I remember the day that I decided to self-guide, and it wasn't because anybody told me to do it. It was literally like I was lying down. I was like, oh, I want to do a nidra, but I don't feel like getting up to get my phone to get the recording. So I'm just going to guide myself through the practice. I've done it long enough. I know how to do it. And I had the deepest experience and the most awakening ever. It was deeper than any yoga nidra practice I had ever been guided in. And I had gone very deep in some guided yoga nidra practices. And I started to think, like, first time you're like, oh, is it a fluke? And then I said, okay, I'm going to guide myself for 90 days, and I'm going to see what happens. And the journey that I went on through those 90 days was really touching into some realms that I did not know were possible in practice. And so for me, I really feel like, again, we have a little bit of the commodification of yoga that kind of comes in, which says, you need to be guided, and I'm going to guide you. And then the, and I know for me as a beginning student, I always um, assumed that it was partially the teacher, which it is because there's some transmission happening. Um, but the most powerful experiences I have had have been with self-guiding. And so what I do in my teacher training and why I added it in the book is because I really wanted people to have agency over their own practice and to know that they could go to these really deep places by guiding themselves consistently. And even now, I do a mixture between guided and self-guided in my own practice. But I feel like self-guiding takes it to another level, um, just, and also for teachers, I think it's really important to be able to self-guide themselves. I know you love to self-guide.
Yeah, and I really almost similar to you, where you didn't have the recording easily available, and so you thought, oh well, I'll guide myself. For me, it was out on a hike. I like to lay down. I would actually have yoga nidra and listen to it, but I didn't have anything to listen. And then I did. I went so deep, and I thought, wow. And there's something about yoga nidra and bonding with the earth.
Mm-hmm.
I'd love for you to talk about this and what comes up for you when I say it.
Well, first of all, I have a full body chill all over, right? Um, what I remember is before I even practiced yoga nidra, I remember doing an earthing practice where I buried myself in the sand and just closed my eyes and was meditating. And what I felt in that moment was that, oh, the earth actually has a vibration. Like there's a pulse, there's a vibration of the earth. And then I can also feel that my body has a vibration and a pulsation. But right now, it's a little bit different than what the earth is. And I would kind of go back and forth and back and forth. And then eventually it would feel as though my body was dissolving and that I was vibrating and pulsing along with this frequency of the earth. So when I started self-guiding, I started going to the beach and doing these practices, allowing myself to be in that vibration. And then it just became a relationship of trust, of actually knowing, and I say this a lot, that the earth can hold me and that the earth can hold anything that I am holding. All the worries, all the concerns, they can all be held. And there's not really many opportunities that we have to be able to fully surrender and allow ourselves to know that unconditionally we are going to be supported. And that is, you know, just one of the many reasons why I love to practice outside in nature.
Yeah. As you're talking about being held unconditionally, Yoga Nidra has always felt like this unconditional mother. And I
Mhm.
love this especially for women who didn't feel mothered well. And there is the unconditional mother inside of all of us. There's the inner
Mhm.
mother. And Yoga Nidra keeps reminding us, because she is the unconditional mother and we have her in us. And the earth is the same, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I talk about the Divine Mother a lot. Um, and the tendency, I think, when that concept is new, is that we tend to personify the idea of mother, right, as the personality. And in Yoga Nidra and other spiritual practices, we get to let go of the personality of the mother, whether our mother was perfect or not, because most likely she wasn't perfect, right? And we get to connect with the universal energy of mother. And I look at the earth as one of our oldest ancestors. She is the great mother.
Mm, yeah. Mm. So let's talk that practical piece of, like, why are we not resting? What do you hear from people? What's one of the number one, two, three, top few reasons people aren't resting, and why is rest so radical today?
Mm. Well, I think people aren't resting because the world tells you that you need to do in order to be worthy, right? The more you do, the more you're worth, the more validation you have, the more you matter. And if you are not doing, then you are less valuable in some way. And I think we get caught up in, what we like to call grind culture, where it's basically the rat race. And I remember being in corporate and I was producing films. And one of the owners of the company came up to me as I was walking from my office to like wherever. And he said, "Why aren't you running around like a chicken with your head cut off like everyone else around here? Why aren't you, you're juggling a lot of projects and why aren't you?" And it's like, I'm not interested in being a court jester, juggling and running around like a fool. It's like I'm rested and I'm clear. And it's actually the rest that makes me more productive because I'm seeing things in a way where I can take shortcuts because the mind is really clear and the mind is sharp. And I don't have to either pretend that I've got, because I see you walking down the hall like, oh, I'm really busy, you know, and and that's part of it. I think it's really an illness that we have that, at some point when the light bulb was invented, we lost our connection with nature. We lost our connection with the cycles of time and light. And all of a sudden it was about productivity. How much can you produce? And the thing is, what are we really producing? If you
Yes.
look around, what are we really producing?
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. And this being out of rhythm, resonance, rest. Dr. Ruben Nyman's book, Healing Night, he talks about rhythm, resonance, and rest. And
Mm,
they're the three sisters. He don't think he says that, but I think of them as the three sisters.
I
You-
love that.
and rhythm is just follow your breath, see how you're breathing today.
Yeah.
And what is and rest, and the resonance. So that what you're talking about how productive are you really when you're not rested? How how are you able to resonate with anything when and this is about the sleep and the wake. How awake are you?
Oh, we're not awake. That
Yeah,
I mean, that's the whole beauty of Yoga Nidra, is
right.
that it's, there's a saying from the Bhagavad Gita that the daytime is the time of the ignorant and the nighttime is the time of the wise. Because those of us who are walking around in the daytime, we're not really seeing. We're going around like zombies, like robots, right? Of course, that probably wasn't happening that much in Bhagavad Gita. They were talking about it on a spiritual level, but mostly we're just, go to any airport, not now, but when the pandemic is fully over, and just look at how people walk around in a daze, right? So it's really important for us to wake up to our lives, to the fullness of our life. And that is what Yoga Nidra offers us. Because while we are in the practice, we are weaving this consciousness, this wakefulness through the waking state, through the dreaming state, through the sleeping state, and then into the void state. And when we do that enough, we start to carry back something with us that is more wakeful and more clear, more intuitive and more knowing. And that is the true, if you want to call it productivity, that's the true portal to being able to be authentic and in your dharma and courageous to be able to follow it. And that's production. That's being productive, you
Yes,
know?
yes. That's the nectar. That's the nectar we need. That is the nectar. Well, I would love for you to offer some nectar to people who are here live with us because we just had a full moon. I mean, literally, like we're in the
Yes.
full moon.
We're in the full,
Oh, and
yeah.
we're in the energy of the full moon, and it's been very powerful full moon. And I would just invite you, if you are open to guiding us in a rest practice today,
Yeah.
we'd love to have it.
I'll guide a little short practice that we can do that will incorporate the full moon energy. And remember, we talked about this idea of consciousness weaving through the waking, the dreaming, and the sleeping. And so this is something that you can carry with you tonight. So whether you can see the full moon right now, or you kind of take a piece of this and you'll know exactly which piece you want to take outside and look at the full moon. And then it'll help you to kind of be more aware in your dream time, but still allow your body to sleep, right? So wherever you are, just allow yourself to either lay down or to lay back or recline your chair in your car and just take a deep, deep, full breath in and then exhale it out. 2 more times. Inhale deeply. Exhale out through the mouth. 1 more time. Inhale deeply. Exhale out through the mouth. Just begin to notice now that you can just let the body breathe, that there is nothing that you need to do or to be. Just feel your body with every exhale releasing a little bit more into whatever it is that is supporting you. And just notice how when the body receives an inhale, the navel expands. As the body releases an exhale, the navel contracts. So just for the next minute, just watch the navel rise and fall. Just feel into whatever it is that you are lying on or sitting on. And just feel as though when the body receives an inhale, the earth is rising up to hold and cradle your body. As the body exhales, you release and let go into that hold. So feel the trust rising up to hold you, support you. And as the body exhales, just feel a softening, a surrendering. Just 3 more breaths like that. Now, as you feel the next inhale entering the body, feel as though it enters the body through the top of the head and releases out through the tips of the toes. Just 3 more breaths, inhaling through the top of the head, exhaling out through the toes. Inhale now through the top of the head and exhale out through the fingertips. Inhale through the top of the head, exhale out through the fingertips. Now feel the breath move in through the top of the head and exhale out through the pelvic center. Inhale through the top of the head. Exhale out through the navel center. Inhale through the top of the head and exhale through the heart center. Inhale top of head and exhale out throat center. Inhale top of head, exhale through the third eye point. And bring your awareness back to the heart center and feel that the inhale is moving in through the heart center, back out through the heart center. The breath is leading you deep, deep into the cave of your heart. Heart center breathing in and breathing out. Now feel as though you are inside of the cave and the inhale expands the walls of the cave. Exhale, the walls of the cave contract. The inhale expands the walls of the cave. Exhale contracts the walls of the cave. Now feel and sense yourself inside of the cave. See yourself lying down in the most restful, supported position. And just allow yourself to let go of all doing, just resting in the cave. Now slowly bring your awareness from the heart center to the throat center. And at the center of the throat, see a full bright moon. Feel and sense that full bright moon rising up the throat, filling the entire face with moonlight. So you see and feel and sense that your face is a full bright moon. Sense or see a full moon in front of your closed eyes. Maybe you remember the moon from last night. See that moon in your mind's eye. And feel as though you could inhale the vapors of the moon, drawing those vapors into your entire body. Feel their cooling, peaceful, blissful vibration. And feel as though you can inhale the moon itself, drawing it into the throat, the center of dreaming. And just ask for whatever wisdom that needs to come to you, comes to you in your dreams tonight. When you feel ready, begin to deepen your breath. As we start to come back, bring your hands together and briskly begin to rub your hands. And as you feel that heat from your hands, just allow your hands to be placed somewhere on your body where you would like to receive a healing, an honoring, an anointing. And just inhale deeply, drawing that energy into that place in your body. Exhale out. One more time, inhale. Exhale out. Bring your hands now over your eyes. Inhale and feel this energy moving in through your eyes. Feel it and sense it as blue-gray, cooling light, filling your brain and mapping your entire nervous system with peace and bliss. And when you feel ready, very slowly, you can come back. If you feel called to journal or write, you can do that. But take your time. So when you go out tonight, if you can look at the full moon, just before you go to sleep, look at the full moon and literally feel as though you can inhale those vapors of the moon. So watch the moon, draw that energy into your throat center. And when you go to sleep, just remember that full bright moon at the throat. You have a journal next to you. And when you wake up, just start writing. And then you can send me a message and let me know what happens. Thank you all for indulging me for a practice.
Thank you, Tracee. How would
Thank
you like
you.
Radiant Rest to make a difference?
Mm.
Beautiful book you wrote.
I would love for it to make a difference for us all to know that no matter who we are, no matter what we've done, no matter where we come from, that we are worthy of reclaiming this birthright of rest, and that what society is telling us to look outward, to look to the external for the answers. All the answers are in here. And all we need to do is to become still and quiet so that we can retrieve that wisdom.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Karen. Really appreciate you being here.
Thank
And
you for
the,
writing the book.
thank you. And just to remind people that you have a book as well called Daring to Rest, specifically for women,
Mm,
to be able to come back to this beautiful practice that is so feminine and so holding.
it truly is. Truly is. I hope everyone on the planet really embraces Yoga Nidra because our bodies need it and our world needs it.
Yeah, it's the medicine for now, no doubt.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Tracee.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, both so much. Does anyone else have any questions they would like to present to these two before we sign off? I noticed there was a section in your book about pranayama. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Like what the role of pranayama and Yoga Nidra is for you, and if you have any favorite breaths that you'd like to share with us?
Yeah, so, pranayama has often been defined as breath restraint or breath control. And it really does talk about this idea of control or constraint, but it's really about prana, the control of prana in order to expand our awareness of prana. And it's important for Yoga Nidra because this chronic kind of sensitivity that we develop during the practice just allows us to become aware that we are more than just our physical body. And it is prana itself. And prana, the word prana means vital life force. It is prana itself that actually guides us back to source. So when we can surrender the awareness of the body and we can allow the body, the physical body, to go to sleep, and we can allow the mind to go to sleep, we become even more and more aware of prana. And then we surrender even more and just allow prana to guide us all the way back to all that is. And that's the journey of Yoga Nidra. So the reason why I have pranayama practices in the book and the reason why I talk about pranayama is, first of all, pranayama is one of the 8 limbs of yoga. And despite the fact that there's only one required pose, which is the pose of resting in Yoga Nidra, it is a full system of yoga, right? And so all of the limbs of yoga are incorporated into Yoga Nidra. And again, Yoga Nidra is more than a technique. Yoga Nidra is a state of consciousness, that place that we go to beyond sleep, right? And it is also referred to as a goddess. And so we can think about the goddess as the earth. We can think about the goddess as the goddess Yoga Nidra that's written about in the stories. Um, and so if we think about those 3 kind of ideas of Yoga Nidra, we realize that Yoga Nidra is a technique that is being presided over by the Great Mother towards a state of consciousness that is said to be peace beyond words. And prana is the vehicle that allows us that awareness to be able to follow it all the way back to that peace beyond words.
Thank you for that. That really helped enhance my understanding of pranayama a lot. Does anyone else have any questions for Tracee or Karen? I'm wondering, Tracee, if you want to talk a little bit about the role of yoga, or more specifically, Yoga Nidra for yogis of color, if there are, special things that may have drawn you to this practice, or ways that you feel like Yoga Nidra can especially help yogis of color.
That's a great question. I'm glad you asked that question because it goes back to the reclaiming, right? Is that some of the experiences that we have had as people of color have really been the message that you don't deserve to rest, that it's dangerous for you to rest, that you are lazy, that, that this is not something that's for you. And so I'm really just saying, and, as I said before, the reclaiming of our worthiness, that this is the birthright of every person. And it is a way for us to be able to release kind of what is the messages that the world is telling us so that we can touch back in to what's true. Because when you touch into what's true, especially when you're touching into your true essence and your own power, which is where Yoga Nidra leads you, no one can ever take that away from you, right? So that is, in the time that we have left, it's very, we could have a whole talk about this for hours, but really it is the reclaiming of what I deserve by being the fact that I am breathing, the fact that I am alive, the fact that I am incarnated at this time in the world on this earth means that I am worthy of rest, and no one has the right to take that away from me.
Absolutely. So beautiful, so eloquently stated. I don't even have much else to say after that. Does anyone else have anything that they'd like to add or questions that they would like to pose? Yes, Mildred says that this all makes her think of self-liberation and ancestral work.
That is correct. So if we had more time, we can go into the science, first of all, of epigenetics, We could go into the work of Malidoma Some and Daniel Four about ancestral healing. And what we do know is that we have the DNA of our ancestors. We carry the trauma, we carry the experiences, whether your ancestors were enslaved or whether they were in the Holocaust or whether they were in Ireland somewhere as domesticated workers. And I talk about this in the book. We are all carrying some form of trauma. And so the book that I would point people to in regards to trauma is Resmaa Mekonam's book, My Grandmother's Hands.